whereas hard tube fittings only require compression on the outer diameter. One tip here is to always buy a few more extra fittings than your loop requires. You never know if you'll accidentally tear an O-ring or maybe even change your mind on the loop design entirely. You also have 45-degree and 90-degree adapters for these fittings, making your life a lot easier when it comes time to route your tubing. It's also possible to link multiple 45 and 90-degree fittings together for some really interesting routing, and some that just wouldn't be possible otherwise with regular tubing. Now, one really important tip here that I can give with soft tubing, especially EKZMT, and working with compression fittings, is to soak the end of the tubing in distilled water before installation. This way, the tubing stretches over the internal barb a lot easier, but most of all, sliding and screwing the lock over the tubing is so much easier. This is especially important with EKZMT tubing, which is pretty thick. It's otherwise almost impossible to work with when the tubing is completely dry. Getting a bit deeper into the parts now, that's where extenders come in. These come in many sizes and are available with either female or male ports on either end. These are especially handy when you need to install a 90-degree fitting, but you also need a bit of extra height to clear a fan or just to line up nicely with another fitting. This way you can get much cleaner tubing runs with less stress and torque on the tubing and the fittings. Seriously though, I can't express how much extenders have helped with a lot of my previous builds, so do keep in mind where they could possibly be incorporated into your own loop. Then, if you're finding it difficult to position a fill or drain port somewhere in your loop, this is where T-fittings come in. These are basically just an extender fitting with an additional access port, which can then be used for filling or draining the loop. Now, one very important tip for beginners is to double check the flow direction of your loop and your water blocks. So here we can see the inlet port, which is indicated by the jet plate. Double check that you're not kind of reversing this and having that as the outlet port, because that kind of just goes against the design of the water block in the first place. The flow direction of your build can be checked from the